Hi all today. It's a it's a bit of a rant video today, kinda, unfortunately, but I've just really noticed the last couple times over the last few years that I've had to attend the emergency room that things seem really laid back. It really seems to me that these medical professionals are getting pretty high on the horse, so to speak. And I will say that, these people make good money. These are professionals. I'm not sure why, when there's nobody in the waiting room, there may be someone in the back in a room, I don't know, but there's nobody in the waiting room, and you're waiting for a half an hour or an hour or more to see the doctor. I don't know what goes on but behind closed doors. I'm not sure, for all the money that the government wastes, I don't see any reason why there shouldn't be a physician assigned to the emergency room, which I'm sure there probably is. Anyways, a couple of years ago, I broke my finger, pretty much crushed it, uh, playing frisbee of all things. And I was seen in on that occasion. I was seen in a fairly expedient fashion. It was through the day, um, and I will say that I didn't tell anyone that I play an instrument. Um, I hadn't really been playing the guitar for a while. I gave it to my daughter, but I was thinking about buying a saxophone, and I'm glad that I hadn't already purchased it because, um, so I don't know if you can really see that on camera, but there you go. And when I went in, and all they did was they put a splint on it, like this way. They splinted my finger. Um, I would have thought they would have splinted it the other way, but why wasn't that fixed? While I was in the emergency department, why was that not fixed? They gave me a splint and sent me home. Okay, so last Wednesday, and in this video, I'm going to give a little bit of a knife tutorial because I've used a knife probably more than most people. I have a knife in my hand almost every day. And there is a rule that I broke and I've paid for it. I'm 52 now and I've never cut myself really at all because generally I follow this rule if at all possible. If you keep your hand in front of the knife, if you diligently exercise this rule, you make sure that your hand is always in front of the knife whenever possible. I realize it's not always possible, but if you do this, you will likely never cut yourself. But I was cutting up some matting for one of my toolboxes, and Well, I sliced half of the end of one of my fingers off. When I showed my hand, you can see the tape on it. I'm on day 5 now, and it's still wet, and I have no idea how they think that this is going to seal up on its own. I probably still have to go back to the physician. It's not infected yet because I've been salting it. It's all I can really do. And I realize it's in a bad spot to stitch, but in any case, when I went to the hospital, I seen the receptionist, and I'm in the waiting room waiting, and I'm not sure why when you're checked into Emerge, does the triage nurse not get a notification that, not just that they're needed, but, some kind of triage number or something, like how severe is this or whatever. But I mean, the nurse should be coming right out anyways as soon as they get notified. My other problem is that, like, a lot of doctors and nurses don't really seem to really understand the concept of triage. It doesn't mean that you take the first person and the second person and the third person in chronological order. It doesn't mean take the easiest case first. For instance, if someone's just sick, and if you're just sick, I got news for you. You shouldn't be going into Emerge just because you're sick, unless you're really effing sick. But if you've got a cold or the flu, you shouldn't be at the emergency room. But if someone's missing part of their finger and they're bleeding, um, you know where I'm going here. In any case, I was in shock, and I realize that now. Um, but I was pacing around the emergency room, and I could see through the window this male nurse, like, walking around in the back and, talking to people. And I'm not going to say I waited a great deal of time, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but um, lo and behold, when I went into triage, it's this male nurse that's been doing I don't know what in the back for 10 or 15 minutes. Well, someone's out in the emergency room bleeding. And I had my hand wrapped, or my finger wrapped in a paper towel, and I had it in a Ziploc bag. And when I got into triage, I went over to the sink and started soaking the paper towel. And this nurse says to me, he says, don't do that. He says, that'll help to stop the bleeding. So I said to him, what are you talking about? Okay. The paper towel has to come off so that you can see it and so that you can treat it. So I have no idea what this guy was talking about. Anyways, I get the paper towel off. He sees it, and he says, well, we'll spray some foam on it, he says. Okay, I'm missing half of the end of my finger, and they're gonna spray some foam on it, okay? Anyways, as I said, it's not infected yet. I've been salting it. I think that's the only reason, but that it hasn't got infected. I'm going to continue to change the tape and salt it, but I am missing a good chunk of my finger. It's not going to heal. I'm probably going to have to go back to the doctor, and I still expect it to likely get infected. But this nurse, I'm telling you, this is an educated professional, a registered nurse. I was just flabbergasted. And then they weren't even going to let me see the physician, which is like, you're going to spray some foam on that and send me home. And I realized I was in shock, and I wasn't a complete dick or nothing, but I'm, you know, getting frustrated. And I say, no, I really think I should see a physician. I said, is there a doctor here or not? And I was originally told, no, there wasn't a doctor present. Through the day, it was at 1 o'clock at the ER, and I'm told that there's no doctor there. And I waited some more, um, and then I was told later, oh, now there's a doctor there. But I was in shock, and I was very frustrated. And I said to them, I said, you know what, I might as well just call a cab and go the fuck home. Like, you guys weren't even gonna let me see the doctor. You're gonna what? Spray some fucking foam on my finger, okay? And like, what's the doctor doing? Because I've waited in emergency rooms and through the day, like, there should be a physician assigned to the ER. Like, what's he doing? Is he having lunch? Is he having something to eat? Is he, surfing the internet and having his coffee? Like, what's he doing? Because when I get checked into the ER, does he not get notification that, like, we have a bleeder, you know? And even if that's not the case, when he gets a notification, like, you're back there having lunch and you're just going to sit there and finish up your lunch, right? Before you come out to an emergency room call. I know that this kind of shit goes on because there's no way. I was the only one in the emergency room, by the way. Like, there might have been someone in the back. I don't know. Anyways, I did end up leaving. Now, keep in mind, these are professionals. Instead of somebody saying to me, you know what, you're missing a good part of your finger, it needs looked at, you're probably in shock, sit down, try to relax. You know, we'll have someone look at you as soon as possible. There was none of that. They let me leave. They let me walk out like this. So it's been 5 days. It's still raw. There's no way it's going to heal. Like, and it's likely going to get infected. And I realize that they don't swear an oath or anything, but these people let me leave the ER like this. I'm just shocked. And just the fact that the the triage nurse didn't even really think it was, necessary to see the physician. Are you? And he was just, he totally reminded me of um, older, big fat guy, gray hair. I think recently had become a nurse, but what he reminded me of is when I got my diploma, there were 3 or 4 kids in our class that they got their diploma and they had no friggin' idea what they were doing because they just cheated their way through the whole course. And this is exactly what this guy totally reminded me of. And it's like, I'm soaking the paper towel to try and get it off my finger. And he's like, don't do that. What are you talking about? And then what? You want to, spray some foam on it. What are you talking about? And he wasn't even going to put me through to the doctor. I just, absolutely incredible. I don't know what to say, guys. I don't know if you guys have had similar experiences at the ER. Like, I could see maybe if you go through the night, there might not be a physician on hand. You might have to wait. They might have to call them in. But we live in Canada, like, There should be absolutely no reason why through the day or even at night that, you know, the ER doctor should, he should get a base payment for the shift because you might go a whole night and nobody comes in because the way they bill the government is, basically by patient. So they should get something for, um, a base pay for working the ER. But my real problem is these wait times. And they say it's because they're understaffed and all of this crap. I hear excuses from the teachers all the time too. It's nothing but a bunch of hot air, man. Like, you're assigned to the ER. What are you doing in the back that you get notified someone's missing part of their finger and they're bleeding and you're not out there within a half an hour? Like, what are you doing? Okay, if you're having lunch, you're a very well paid professional. If you're having lunch and you get notified that there's an ER call or an ER call, you put your fucking sandwich down, wash your hands, and get the fuck out there. I don't know what's going on here, guys. I think it really reminds me of the teachers too. Like, they're getting very well paid, great pensions, great health care, and I swear it's gone to their heads. Like, they are gods, they're gods. And I will see you when I see you. This is not how it works, okay? You can conduct yourself that way. You can think that's how it works. You can, you know, think you're all that. And I'm telling you, eventually, things are going to change eventually. You're at work, first of all. You're at work. If my boss told me to do something and I like casually, maybe a half an hour later, got to it, and that was, you know, my practice on a consistent basis, I'd get fired. And now we're just talking about a job. Now we're talking about people's health. Okay. And the fact that I was just allowed to leave, I just, I can't believe it. There's no way this isn't going to either get infected or, like, I can't work right now. I can't get this wet. I've been trying to wash up some of my dishes and with one hand, and I can't even do anything. If I so much as bang this, I'm going to be bleeding again and basically be back to square one. Guys, try to have a great day. If you're a doctor or a nurse, okay, especially if you're working in the ER, when you notify the doctor he needs to come to the ER, you should be given it like kind of a triage number, like this is important or this isn't important. That should be going on anyways. But even if it's not something important and you're back there having lunch or you're back there on the fucking internet, put it down and go and do your fucking job because it's getting ridiculous. ER wait times, yeah, because the doctor's sitting on his ass doing nothing. And he's going to come out when he's good and ready. Are you kidding me? Wow.